Hey everyone, so it's Steam Fest again, and for those of you who do not know, every year there's multiple Steam Fests, which are a time that video game developers get to put out the demo of their game for a limited time only. It's taken down in a week, so it's like a demo and a sneak peek combined. It's a fun and exciting time that lets you play a little bit of a game that hasn't come out yet, sometimes by weeks, sometimes by months, and sometimes by years. So because of the demo state of these experiences, many of them are cut together for better or for worse, so I'm not going to judge things too harshly, because you never know what was Frankenstein for the demo. Sometimes the experience is much more fulfilling in the final product, but hey, at least you get to experience the general feel and vibe before it's released. I'm gonna be playing as many of these games as possible over the week. There's over 400 games, so it's not exactly like I'm gonna get to play them all, but I'm looking for things I enjoy and, new stuff developers are doing that's cool, and get a feel for the upcoming year. So let's dive into this season's Steam Fest. Developed and produced by Beserk Boy Games, Beserk Boy is an action platformer I've kept an eye on for the last few years through social media outlets. The game is fulfilling a Mega Man X fan's fantasy. It's pretty clear and immediate, even though I was never much of a Mega Man X fan. Playing the demo gave me a fond, familiar sensation of some of my favorite childhood memories on SNES. It did remind me of some things I used to play as a kid, like Power Rangers, and some of the more recent things like Mercenaries and its art style at moments. The mobility feels terrific, and I gotta say, I instantly fell back into a Super Nintendo muscle memory I really wasn't aware I possessed. It felt very good and was extremely playable. The only reason it didn't get to the tippity top of my list is because I'm not entirely in love with Mega Man, but if you are, you definitely should be playing this. One of the games that blew me away, even though many media outlets have already been showing some screenshots and art from this, was the demo for Children of the Sun. Developed by Renee Rother and published by Devolver Digital, other than its terrific art direction and beautiful use of post-punk aesthetics, it's got pretty cool, dreary, culty, Venture Bros-ish cutscenes and dynamic music to play your actions in the game, which I am in love with always. Its on-rails movement system, right when you start, of course, rummaged up memories of Killer 7 for me, and a lot of 6th generation happy times as a child. This game is at the top of my list. A puzzle shooter meets sniper game with the goal of eliminating cultists that done me wrong. Yes, absolutely, please. Thank you. A character-driven 3D deck builder FTL-esque experience developed by Edgeflow Studio and published by Hooded Horse. With well-developed characters, it plays very much like, well, FTL, but with deeper developed mechanics and fluidly integrated interactions with your crew throughout the experience. I liked my time with Breachway. I like when these games give you a bit faster of a onboarding process, but it's a demo, so what do you really want them to do? It's officially released March 22nd, but if you love FTL and thought it just needed more characters, this is probably right up your alley. I've seen Death of a Wish around the last few months, and it's, really intense palette and style forces you to pay attention. It's developed by Me Less Than 3 and published by Syndicate Atomic, LLC. I was always intrigued as to how they would make the visuals work to communicate clear gameplay. And to be honest, I played through the demo with ease. Didn't really give me any difficulty in the areas I thought it would. The visuals were really cool, but at the same time, after I played, my eyes felt kind of fatigued. Part of me wanted a plot twist at any moment to reveal a contrasting art style in like a quote-unquote real world or whatever. But from what I've gathered, that's not a thing. And I'm not much of a RPG Maker fan. Not to say this is made in that engine, but just genre-wise and stylistic-wise. It definitely brings up those inspirations. It's an unconventional action RPG feel on top of those kinds of RPG Maker community feels. I'd say it's a bit of a hyperlight drifter mixed with like my high school composition book of drawings. I know there's a large group of people that love unconventional art styles in RPG Maker games. So if you're into that or intrigued, I encourage you to try it out. Another game I have followed very closely since its first peep on the internet postings is Crow Country, a 5th-gen console retro survival horror game created by developers SFB, and they also did the Tangle Tower series. That's getting a sequel soon. I got a chance to talk with them at Day of the Devs in December, and I gotta say, I was really struck by the post-processing at work in Crow Country. It resembles almost identically the artifacting that's in like the N64, at least from my childhood memory recollection. It inspires those thoughts and memories. It's really beautiful and nails the sound effects matching the time period and aesthetic. The demo was paced extremely well, and classic search missions, find the notes, lost keys, diorama level layouts. It was extremely enjoyable. It feels like it's going to be, a shorter, briefer experience, but despite that, it does place toward the top of my game list. I look forward to getting my metaphorical hands on it. Not on my radar at all until Steamfest, and I downloaded it. Airuna, developed by Neckbolt and published by Burning Planet Digital, is a NES-era retro platformer. I found myself loving the soundtrack, and it's fun and dark and strange world building and lore. It's pretty cool, and the old rickety genre is streamlined with an experience that feels pretty approachable. I only found 1 or 2 moments I was feeling cheated by the pixel-perfect platforming, and that's the name of the game for this generation, so I don't really think I should be complaining. The first thing that came to mind when I started playing it was my childhood copy of Quattro Adventures on NES, which contained not just Treasure Island Dizzy and Linus Spacehead, but specifically Super Robin Hood, which was a dead ringer for what was going on in Airuna, and I loved it. Quattro Adventures also came with Boomerang Kid, but we do not talk about Boomerang Kid. Not much of a shmup bullet hell person, I'll admit I went into this knowing it wasn't up my alley. Developed by Keelworks and published by Konami, the visuals for it are so cool and captivating, I needed to know more about the world and jumped in. The mechanics were something new to me, a variety of attack styles and allowance for slight aiming in the game. I either never knew the genre had evolved so much, or CYGNI has done a lot to push the envelope. I, however, got farther without knowing any of the advanced controls and just played it the first time as a traditional shoot-'em-up and got a lot farther than when I did eventually go through the tutorial and learn all the extra tricks. But this is to be expected from someone who doesn't live in the genre, but you should play it if you do. Balatro, developed by Local Think and published by PlayStack, was definitely one of my favorite games I've played so far. I told myself I wasn't going to play favorites, but man, it's good. I don't think of myself as a lover of roguelite deck builders, but it was straightforward and it's light and addictive. I don't even really like card games, but it lets you imagine you're a card-counting strategic genius, and what more could you want from a game like this but to be told you're smart and amazing and awesome. It's beautifully designed and very nicely coded, feels very tight, and the music and sound effects are perfectly aligned with the aesthetic. I'm sure anyone that gives it a chance will be taken over by its charm and addictive nature. Developed by Blackbird Interactive and published by Gearbox Publishing, we have been waiting a very long time for Homeworld 3, like 20 years. And even though this demo just had a tutorial and access to multiplayer, and it so happens I'm a staunch campaign person with my RTSs, it was a very nice experience. It's like slipping into a luxury sedan of real-time strategy. Just going through the tutorial was an absolute delight and gave me all the vibes and feels and things I miss about this genre from my youth. Developed and published by Inevitable Studios, Always in Mind is serving up that semi-storybook time action-adventure with a narrator experience that seems to follow the inspirations of Giant Swan games like What Remains of Edith Finch or Unfinished Swan. For me, it didn't quite get to that level. I was hoping for an experience that was elevated to that degree, but I think my expectations from its similar aesthetics gave me unfair expectations. However, if you have a soft spot for familial memories, reconnecting family stories, beautiful piano music, or collectathon action platformers, it might be for you. INDIKA. Everyone's been showing off INDIKA. It's developed by Odd Meter and published by 11-Bit. Just from the initial game art, it was pretty clear INDIKA's delivering a different style of game. The demo is a nice snippet, diverse of experiences, and even though it's out of context and probably an hour or two into the game, it's clear that INDIKA is on a different level. Wrapped up in what almost feels like a AA game from 2009, it has numerous musical, interface, and puzzle choices that had me doing double takes constantly. To be expected, this is definitely in my top tier of games I'm looking forward to, and I can't wait to see what this off-putting, gamified catechism, nun simulator, black narcissist meets Hellblade, mother superior skill tree experience has in store for us. It's due to release at an undisclosed date in the first quarter of this year, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm a pretty big rally racing fan, big enough to own both dirt rally games and many other WRCs. #Drive Rally may be a smaller game, but it's clear and concisely executed. I think it's a strong entrance for people that are newer to the subsect of rally racing, and I'm hoping that people take a chance on it because the field of rally racing games on Steam is pretty sad. There's not a lot of quality experiences that can compete with the top 2 or 3 names in that field, and there's a lot of driving and drifting fodder on the content provider. I'm always hoping for a new contender. My only real gripe with this experience was the use of hashtag in their title, but they aren't the only offenders of that rule this year. Developed by Gravity Lagoon and published by Hype Train Digital, Gatekeeper is delivering that Hades experience with a co-op mode. I instantly want to backpedal because even though I'm not a big Hades fan, evoking that game and its level of craftsmanship is pretty dangerous. Gatekeeper has a more ethereal take narratively, and there's not much of a character story angle to be noted from the demo. It does have pretty cool character designs and some pseudo cel-shaded art style thing going on, but the overall art direction is a bit generic sci-fi-ness for me. Instead of just killing all enemies, it does mix up levels with some alternate objectives, but I'm not really sure if that's as cathartic as having a all enemies defeated level clear moment. Gatekeeper does bring up a great point that there's a lot to explore in the genre, especially with the co-op angle, but it didn't quite make me feel content. I always wish the character I was playing was running and rolling around, rather than being an ethereal space angel of death floating, but I'm sure there's some cool lore reason behind it, but that doesn't really fulfill me as much as watching the other enemies have full animations all the time. For those that adore the genre, it might have entertainment for you if you were looking for a co-op mode. Its release is slated for some time in Q1. CryptMaster. I got the chance to see CryptMaster also at Day of the Devs in December, but in the atmosphere of socializing and noisiness, I wasn't really possessed to jump on it. Developed by Paul Hart, Lee Williams, and Akapara Games, as well as published by Akapara Games, its stylistic flair and tone is an eye-catcher in any grouping of games. I, like probably most people, instantly thought Typing of the Dead when I saw it, but the dungeon crawling and the intense interactivity of the game really sets it apart. I think it has a lot more mechanics than most people would expect from it, and because of the predictability of people and how they respond to things, the amount of prompts and how they can set up responses for prompts is immensely entertaining. It engages with you in ways you don't really expect, and I actually ended up really loving it. It's another game I'm definitely buying as soon as it pops up on the store, and I'm so happy it turned out to make me so happy. Be My Horde. Developed and published by Polished Games, it's of course a roguelite, bullet hell, survivor-like with a spin. Now, instead, you amass a crowd of the undead from the very enemies you defeat. Slowly, you grow into a massive mob. It's a pretty good spin on the genre, but I think we will have to wait and see how good of a spin and how far that carries it. It's released on February 29th, so we don't have to wait that long from this date to find out. #Blood. By Exit 73 Studios and published by Humble Games, #Blood is one of the few games that gets top marks for executing on achieving that games that look identical to cartoon animations. With a lot of inspirations going on, the most prevalent are the Gendy Tartakovsky and Cal Art style, with a nice slickness to its animation and funny comments actually that made me laugh. Its fighting and general mechanics felt very tight for something that's usually done so floaty, and it felt really thoughtfully executed. In that special place that kids and adults alike can enjoy it, I found it really funny, and I loved the demo, and I hope this is only the start of more game developers pushing to achieve that special, unattainable place that animation cartoons hold. Dystopika, or Dystopika, by Voids Within, developed and published by. It's a chill out and build a cyberpunk city and take pictures game. I didn't think much of this, but I spent a good 20 minutes on the demo building a city and altering it and taking pictures and then lining up cities with my specific photograph location in the city and then building around that location and then trying to delete certain ones to get the perfect view, adding post-processing effects, and it really brought out the dystopian advertisement genius placer in me. I liked it, and if you're into these kind of laid-back, chill out, and take pictures games, I encourage you to try it. So that's it for this volume. We'll see how much more I get through. I'm excited to see what else is out there. If you have any recommendations, inspirations, salutations, feel free to tell me. If you think I'd love or hate something, I probably want to know. I'm pretty curious when it comes to any game. If people enjoy this, I contemplate doing every season of Steamfest, and maybe you have similar events you want me to talk about, so if you have any recommendations, go ahead and tell me. And that is it. This has been Fib Likley and Play Games.